Factorising quadratic algebraic expressions, for example, an expression like this, where we've got a squared term, it's the squared term that makes the expression quadratic. What we have to do is to follow a particular method, which I'm going to show you now, and we're going to go through some examples, and after I've shown you the method, I'm then going to explain why this method works. Now, the method is that we look at the single number here, the 10, and we find two numbers that multiply together to make 10. Now, as we know, that could be 1 and 10, or it could be 2 and 5. And then these two numbers, whether it's 1 and 10 or 2 and 5, have got to add together to make the number in the middle, in other words, to make the number that's attached to the x. So we'll keep that in mind, and we'll just keep these numbers over here so that we can go back to them in a minute. We can start with putting x in each bracket. Now, if you're not sure about expanding brackets, there's a video on expanding two brackets, which is useful to go through, and I'd advise watching that before watching this video. So we can put an x there and an x there, because when we expand these brackets, which means multiply the two brackets together, we're going to be multiplying x times x, and that's going to give us our x squared term. This 10, and because it's a plus 10, that makes it quite easy for us really, because if we look at these numbers, we can see immediately that 2 and 5 make this number here, make 7. So we can dismiss the 1 and 10 as the numbers that we want. And we're going to write in 2 and 5. And that's because when we multiply the brackets out, they have to have x squared at the beginning and 10 as the number on its own. And so we've got the x squared at the beginning, x times x. We've got 10 at the end, 2 times 5. And now we just want to make sure that we've got these numbers which will add up to 7x. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to fill the rest of those brackets in, and then we're going to do a little check. So let's remember how to multiply these brackets. So remember, we multiply the x by the x, and that equals x squared. And then we can multiply the x by the 5, and that's going to give us plus 5x. And then we can multiply the 2 by the x, which gives us 2x, and the 2 by the 5, which gives us 10. And now we can see that we can collect the like terms here. So we can write down x squared plus 7x plus 10, and we've got back to our original expression. And so this little method works because when we multiply it all out, it becomes the original expression. Now, as you get used to doing this and following that little method, it will become easier and easier to understand why it works. And so much of maths is practice, really practice, practice, practice. Learning that little method. Now, just a little note here that in the next video we're going to look at slightly more tricky quadratic expressions, and we're going to be following pretty much the same method, but there will be a slight difference. But for now, just focus on this one, and let's just go through that again. We're looking for two numbers that multiply together to make the number that's on its own there. And we know that those two numbers could have been 1 or 10, 1 and 10, or 2 and 5. And so also, as well as multiplying together to make that number, they had to add together to make the 7. And so we find that the numbers are 2 and 5. And so when we put the 2 and 5 in, we see that when we multiply those brackets out, we get x squared, x times x times 5 is 5x, 2 times x, 2x, and then 2 times 5, 10. We collect these like terms, 5x plus 2x, in other words, 5 lots of x plus 2 lots of x is equal to 7x. and then we get our 10.